Welcome to Goobertown Hobbies. My name is Brent. Today we're going to convert and paint a fabulous marine. This is a fun way for mini painters to celebrate Pride Month, and it's a good excuse to paint something a bit different. We're going to paint something with more colors, but fewer weapons and skulls. Last year I painted up this big beaky party animal with the Power Fist finger guns. That's going to be hard to beat, but let's try. The first order of business is to pick a model. For some reason, the attack bike jumped into my mind. This here is a vehicle that requires trust and a whole lot of love. The only problem is I don't have an attack bike. Now an ATV also would have been a good choice, but I don't have one of them either. I do have some land speeders though, and these have a lot of potential. But then I found the real winner, Dark Angel's Ravenwing bikes. Ordinarily, I think these look pretty silly, but for today's project, they're perfect. These wings will make wonderful flags. I got these off of Craigslist years ago. The original owner primed them on the sprue. Some of the bits have a bit of texture, but nothing too bad. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that I want to change about this model. I'm going to remove and convert the weapons, and I'm going to cut off a whole lot of skulls, eagles, and crosses. Especially skulls. I've got to remove a whole lot of skulls. This is the second year of the Fabulous Marines event. It's kind of a digital pride parade. It's a chance for the mini painting community to affirm that yes, you are welcome here. No matter who you are or who you love, you are welcome here. Alrighty, well I've almost got all the skulls off now. I chopped off the bolters and glued on some circular bits of sprue that I can paint to look like headlights. Now here's the fun part. We've got to pick a head and figure out who our rider is. I went through my bits box and pulled out a variety of heads. I've got some heads from the Stormcast Eternals, Chaos Warriors, Dark Eldar, and even some Frostgrave Wizards. The head is gonna set the tone for the whole mini. And yep, a lot of the heads that I'm auditioning present as female. I know the official lore says that girls aren't allowed in the most popular factions of 40k or 30k, but that lore is really, really stupid, so we're just gonna ignore it. The No Girls Allowed rule is printed in hundreds and hundreds of books, but that doesn't make it any better or any more real. It just makes the publisher much, much dumber. And here's the winner, a screaming Dark Eldar head. The bike is modeled as taking a turn way too fast, so really I had to choose a head that was screaming, and I think this one is pretty dang cool. As a last conversion, I put the heads of some nails on the new lights. They have a bit of texture that might make them look like grating. And now it's time to reprime the mini and get a base coat on there. I did use some purple ink with my airbrush to try to do a sweet color transition. Honestly, it didn't turn out very well, and I'm gonna end up painting over this with a regular brush. Sometimes the airbrush is really useful, and sometimes it's not. At least this layer of purple will make it easier to layer on some purple with my brush. Purple isn't a color that I normally spend a lot of time with, so this will be some good experience. I put down a layer of white paint in the places where I want to have some rainbows. The white base coat will give those colors a better chance to be really bright and vibrant. As for getting some neutral colors in there, the tires are black and the exposed mechanical bits are going to be either black or gray. The cloak is going to be tan. We're going to have enough going on with all these rainbows, so I want to get the neutral colors in there where we can. On to the purples. For the bike, I'm using Reaper MSP Imperial Purple, and I'm going to do the trim with Reaper MSP Amethyst Purple. For the Marine's armor, I'm doing purple from Vallejo Model Color. This is one of my all-time favorite colors, and it's nice to have an excuse to use it. In a little while, I'll pull out some ultramarine blue as trim for the armor. This is close enough to purple to jive pretty well. For the rainbows, I'm using all Pro Acryl paints. The core set of Pro Acryl has some bottles that are dead center for what I think of as traditional primaries and secondaries. 6 bottles of classic Roy G. Biv. And Monument Hobbies has done us the courtesy of naming these colors reasonable things, like orange, green, and blue. The wings on this model are the reason I chose it. They have discrete, quantized feathers, and it's easy to paint these in just like painting stripes on a flag. Those feathers are helping me to get nice crisp lines of each color. The only challenge is figuring out how many feathers I want for each color and whether I want to mix up any intermediates. I'm working inwards from each side of the rainbow, and I'm trying to count to make sure that I end up with the right number of feathers for yellow and green in the center. I had to switch up a few feathers by a shade or two here and there, but I think we wound up with some nice looking rainbows. The right side of this model has a whole bunch of purity seals. I'm going to treat those as colored streamers. This is a great opportunity to work the colors of the trans flag onto this model. Last year, I used some masking tape to stencil in a variety of pride flags. But really, it's so much easier to just have some discrete feathers and streamers to color in. Next up, black lining. I loaded up a small brush with black Liquitex ink. I'm going through and hitting a lot of the borders between objects and the joints and armor plates. As time has gone on, I've become a bigger and bigger fan of black lining. It's painstaking, but I think it adds a lot to the mini, and I love how clean it is. Well, it's not necessarily clean right away, but once I come back and neaten those borders, it's gonna look really sharp. The only place where I'm using a wash is on the cloak. I'm preparing it with a layer of gloss varnish to make the wash flow nicely. Now once the varnish was dry, I put on some soft tone from Army Painter. I figured that the cloak has enough folds that a wash might come out alright. Not great, but not terrible. I'll spend some time trying to highlight this a bit, and I think it'll come out okay. The holstered pistol is gonna be a Nerf pistol. This is all for fun. I don't want any actual weapons on her, so we'll just paint it like a toy gun. For the face, I pulled out my tiny brush, and I layered up with a bit of Jasper skin from Army Painter. Then I mixed in a bit of Vallejo flat flesh for the highlights. With an even tinier brush, I dotted the eyes, I made a line of bone for the teeth, and a line of pink for the lower lip. And that's about as good as I can make this face look. I highlighted the robes a bit using the original bone color, and then a slightly lighter bone color. Then it was time to highlight the bike. For this, I mixed the hull purple with a lilac trim, and I carefully traced all of the various corners. The nice thing about using a flat purple instead of some sort of airbrush transition is that it's much easier to fix mistakes. If I make a black line or a highlight too thick, I can just come in with that medium purple and clean it right up. I'm really happy with how this is coming along. This is the second year of the Fabulous Marines event, and I'm pleased to say that I like this year's model even more than the one I made last year. The event is really well organized over at fabulousmarines.com. In addition to being a celebration, this event is a fundraiser for the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is a crisis hotline for young people in the LGBTQ community. Adolescence can be really tough for anyone, but it's a whole lot harder if you have to deal with bigotry on top of everything else. The Trevor Project provides resources to help get through the roughest patches. There will be links in the description if you want to learn more or donate. Alrighty, we're moving to smaller and smaller details. The buttons on the control panel get to be a few different colors. I'm using a black Micron pen to write the year on the shoulder pad. 2022 isn't all bad. For example, this biker here is pretty cool. This pen is also a good tool to try to draw in the grading on the extra headlights. It turned out okay. Not great, but okay. Oh yeah, and now a mixture of white and purple to edge highlight the armor. From here on out, it's just tiny fixes on the paint jobs and two big choices. First, we need a real base. I went digging in my collection and I found this set of pre-painted resin bases from Gamer's Grass. They sent me this as a sample a few years ago and I stuck it in a box. But now I think the time has finally come. This is actually the first time I've ever used a pre-painted base, but it's convenient and I think it's gonna look great. I ended up going with this off-center positioning. Partially this is to jive with where the curb and the debris are on the base, but partially I just think it looks awesome. This isn't a gaming piece, so we can play with the presentation a bit. There's one more reason why I positioned the model the way that I did. We've still got to give her something for her left hand. Whatever we add there will help to balance the Mini more towards the center of the base. That hand used to hold a chainsword, but I want to put something more fun and less violent in there. I thought of a sign, a kite, or a bunch of balloons. I have some steel wire and some brass rods, so I can make a stick or a string that'll hold a bit of weight. I don't quite know how to make balloons, and it seems like a kite would look more natural with a longer line than the frame allows. And as for a sign, here's what she looks like with a sign. I don't really like this. It draws too much focus, and it blocks our view of the sweet paint job. Also, it would be irresponsible of me to put a meme template like this out into the world. And then some folks on Instagram suggested a pinwheel. Yeah, that'll be perfect. It turns out that I'm terrible at folding tiny pieces of paper. So here's what I ended up doing. I cut tiny rhombuses from the plastic clamshell that the base came in. I glued 3 rhombuses together to make a Klingon symbol. And then I stacked 2 Klingon symbols on top of each other to make a 6-petal pinwheel. The first attempt wasn't bad, and the second attempt was good enough to be a keeper. Of course, I got it painted up as a Roy G. Biv color wheel, and there we go, looking good. I gave a final pass to fix some tiny details, and now it's time for the glamour shots. She is glamorous. She is fabulous. Cruising down the street, taking corners way too fast, and making that pinwheel spin like crazy. She's gonna catch up with all the fabulous minis that other folks have been working on, and she's gonna join that parade. This was a fun one. I do love me some colors. Well, I guess that's it for this time. Thanks so much for watching. And, be good to each other.